This video is brought to you by YT Andrew Paul Tech Repairs. If you have a console, laptop, computer or MacBook in need of repair in the UK or the EU, then have a look in the description below this video for details on how to contact us in order to organise your repair. Hello there ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. We're back, and today we're doing a video that I've been meaning to do for quite a while now, and that is to update the tutorial for replacing or upgrading the hard disk drive inside your Xbox One console. And thankfully, this is good news because Microsoft has made this a lot easier than it used to be. So if your machine is running any update from sort of the last probably 15 months or so, then you'll probably be okay to follow this particular method. But if yours is a bit older than that and it's been sat around in a cupboard or a bit unloved like mine has been recently, and it's probably a couple of years out of date, then you're probably going to be best off following the previous method, the link to which is in the description below. But providing you've got any form of recent update from certainly within the last 12 months, then you'll be good to use this new method. All you're going to need to carry out this particular procedure is a laptop with an internet connection, a USB stick, preferably sort of either 8, 16 gigs in size or larger, and of course a new hard disk drive, whether that be the same size as the one you've already got, or obviously one that's slightly bigger. So obviously I've done these videos before now. There's two previous ones on the channel. Both have got hundreds of thousands of views and have helped out a lot of people to do this particular upgrade. And there are some common things which crop up in the questions and the comments all the time. So the really basic ones I'm going to address here before you start. So we get them out of the way really quickly. The first one is error codes, E100 in particular. Yes, if you've got error codes, E101 specifically, 102, all that sort of stuff, then yes, potentially you have a bad hard disk drive. And obviously you can use a 500 gigabyte, 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte disk to upgrade them. You can use sort of anything larger than that. There are ways to get drives larger than 2 terabytes to work, but they're a little bit fiddly and I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so basically you're going to want a 500 gig, 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SATA based 2.5-inch laptop style hard disk drive for your upgrade. Yes, you can use SSDs, but be careful. There is one extra caveat with an SSD, and that is some of them are slightly off size. So for example, if you have a 500 gigabyte hard disk drive and you just want to upgrade it to an SSD for some better performance, then obviously, if you buy a 500 gig SSD, that's fine. If you buy a 512 gigabyte SSD, that's fine. It's bigger than 500 gigs. It will format as a 500 gig drive. You'll just have a tiny little bit of extra space on the end. That's fine. Some of them are a little bit smaller. Some of them, you've got to be careful because some of them will be advertised as 480 gigs. The number of times where somebody said, I've put it in, it's showing E101s, or I put it in and the scripts that we used to use on the previous videos won't complete the format. And you go, it's a new SSD, I don't understand why it's not working. And I'll turn around and go, is it a 480 gig disk? And they'll go, it is. And I go, it's too small. It needs to be a minimum of 500 gig. And I didn't think it would matter 480, 500, but it does. It makes all the difference. So with an SSD, that's the only thing you've got to be careful of. Likewise, it's not really the size of the disk itself, it's the size of the partition on the disk. So if you had a 4 terabyte disk and you formatted it as a 2 terabyte, it would work perfectly well. No problem whatsoever. You just have 2 terabytes of unused space at the end. But you could do it. It would be absolutely fine. Likewise, a lot of older laptop drives you might have kicking around that you want to use as an upgrade, like 1.5 terabytes. Again, you can format those as a 1 terabyte disk. Will be absolutely fine. Brilliant. Where it gets a little bit funky is when you start messing around with the partition sizes. So you can sort of manipulate them about. So if you had a 4 terabyte disk, for example, you could sort of move the partitions around and stretch them. But here be dragons, because when it comes to update time, it could give you some quite serious issues, throw error messages, quit the update, and leave you in a whole world of hate and pain. So be careful if that's what you're going to do. Hence why I recommend either 500 gig, 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes, because those are supported SKUs and will work perfectly fine out of the box and be perfectly compatible with your Xbox going forward. Whether you want to update it, whether you want to factory reset it, all that sort of stuff, they'll all be perfectly fine, and they're the ones I recommend you use. In this particular video, we're going to be using a Seagate 2TB hard disk drive to upgrade the one in this machine. This is my personal 500 gig day one edition, launch edition Xbox One. I'm merely using this for the video. I don't really use it. I've never really used it. It's just sat in a cabinet collecting dust since I bought it. If you have a hard disk drive you want to use for the upgrade, but you have already used it, so it's already got files on there. Maybe it's been in another Xbox. Maybe it's been in the PlayStation 4. Maybe it's been in an old laptop or something else and you've already got stuff on it. I'd recommend you plug it into your PC and you wipe that data. And I'm going to show you how you do it quickly and easily to give your Xbox the best possible chance of taking to it. Now, again, sometimes, and I've done it myself, you just throw it in there and it'll be fine, and this new procedure will sort of take care of it. But I have seen it cause problems as well, hence why, I recommend you clean it, because when I've seen it give problems, I've plugged it into the PC or the laptop or the desktop or whatever it is you're going to use, we've cleaned it, put it back in, and the update's gone through. Hence why, if it's previously been used, I always recommend you clean it first, hence the need where you might need the SATA adapter or SATA cable to connect to your your used hard drive that you're going to use to upgrade your Xbox to your PC. You might get away with it, you might not. You just have to give it a go. So in this particular instance, this is a new hard drive. This is one I've had around for a little bit. It was bought for an upgrade that never actually went through. But so it's been collecting dust. So I'm just going to show you on this particular machine what to do with it. So anyway, so what we're going to need to do is, if you are in the same boat as me, so for all intents and purposes this is a new disk, but it has been used. I've been using it for testing things. So if that's the case with you, then we're going to clean the disk to get it into an as new out of the box condition. So on Windows 10 you can right click the start button and go to disk management. On older versions of the OS, on Windows 7, you go to Start, Control Panel, Administrative Tools, Computer Management, and on the menu on the left-hand side, there's an option there for Disk Management. Either way, the window looks the same as this. So we can see here, Disk 2 is the 2 terabyte. So Disk 0 is my storage drive in my laptop, which is 1 terabyte. Disk 1 is the SSD, which is the OS boot drive. Disk 2 is the 2 terabyte one we've got hooked up at the minute via a USB to SATA adapter. All these little partitions in here is because this has been used for testing a PS4. And then disk 3 down here is the removable disk. This is my USB stick, 32 gigs in size, this particular one. And again, as you can see there, PS4. Yeah, it's got PS4 system update on it. So this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, so if your hard drive has been previously used for whatever purpose, I always recommend you clean it. And what we do is we're looking for the one that that is ours. So if you're in any doubt whatsoever, let's say you've got two 1 terabyte drives, for example, you don't want to clean the wrong one, because once you clean it, you erase all the data. So all you do is right click on whichever disk down here you suspect might be yours and go to Properties. And it should tell you under Details, I think, Hardware IDs, all that sort of stuff. You can see this is USB storage. So this is the one that's connected via USB. Yeah, you can see up here, ASMT 2115. That might very well come up with, for example, if you've got your drive connected internally, Seagate, whatever it is. So it's a good way of telling. So as you can see there, this one is connected via USB. I've only got one drive connected via USB. It's that particular one. I've only got one 2 terabyte disk, let's be honest. It's this one here. So I know mine is disk 2. Once you've identified which disk is yours, we're going to go to Start and Run. And we're going to type CMD. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to type something in here called diskpart. DISKPART. As you can see, there it is, diskpart. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to say list disk. And you can see there, it brings back a list of disks, and funnily enough, it's the same list we see in disk management. As you can see there, under size, I have one drive which is 2 terabytes in size. That's the one I'll be using, disk 2. So I'm going to select disk 2, hit enter. It says disk 2 is now the selected disk. I'm going to say clean and enter. You see there, diskpart succeeded in cleaning the disk, and when I exit that now, You can see, look, disk 2 is now of an unknown type and it's not initialized. That's fine. We can now put this back in our Xbox. You can disconnect that drive now. Everything is going to be fine. When you buy one from a shop, brand spanking new, that is how it will come. It will, if you plugged it into your PC, it would show up like that and it would ask you to initialize the disk. So that disk is now returned to a brand new default out of the box condition. That'll be perfect now for use in our Xbox. The other thing we need to do, remember we mentioned that USB stick, we're going to want to download something called an OSU1 tool, which is from Microsoft. Fire up your favorite web browser and head to the following link, www.xbox.com/xbox1/OSU1, all lowercase, all one sort of string, if you like, no spaces. The link to that again is in the description below. Click that and it will start downloading. Now it won't load a page up. It won't look like it's, potentially depending on what browser you're using, it may not look like it's doing anything. But if that's the case for you, just go into your downloads tab and you'll see it working away. Okay, so I've downloaded this ahead of time to save us time on this particular video. So basically once it's finished downloading, what you're going to want to do, plug your USB stick into your machine. Remember, it needs to be a minimum of 8 gigs ideally. Probably these days, to be fair, I'd recommend probably a minimum of 16. This particular stick I'm using today is a 32 gig stick. The first thing we're going to need to do is prepare it for use in our Xbox by formatting it. Now by default, USB sticks will be formatted either FAT32 or exFAT. For the for the PS4, for the Xbox One, they need to be formatted as an NTFS file type, or partition type, should I say. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into my computer and we're going to go onto our USB stick. We're going to right click, format, okay. We're going to go to make sure we've got the right stick selected. We have file system. By default, it's going to be at FAT32. We need to make sure ours is set to NTFS. Volume label, we're going to give it a friendly name. So something like OSU1. Quick format is fine. Say start. It's going to ask you to OK that. Say OK. And then once that's done, it's going to say format is complete. We can OK that and close the formatting box. Brilliant. What we can then do is we can then go to our drive and we can come into where we've downloaded our OSU1 zip file. So once you've downloaded the file from that link, it's probably going to go by default to your downloads folder. I've moved mine into here. And what we're going to do is we're going to open that up. It's a zip file, so you can extract it where you like. In this particular instance, I'm using 7-zip, but you can use anything you like. Windows has a default utility these days. That'll be absolutely fine. As long as you can open the zip file and extract the files out, you'll be absolutely sound. So by default in here we have a $system update folder. We're going to right click and we're going to, well, you can do anything you like really. Just highlight it and hit extract. And then we can find our USB stick, of course. Remember we gave it a nice friendly name of OSU1 earlier. Say OK, OK again. And that's going to go away now and that's going to copy all the files from the archive to our USB stick. And if we go back to our USB stick for now, you can see there, we started to get a few files copying to this now. So we can see the important thing is this is our USB stick, and in the root of our USB stick, so basically in the first folder is our $system update folder, and inside that folder is all our various files. Now we're going to leave this to copy. It's going to take a while. It's probably going to take 5 minutes or so, even with a USB 3 stick. So let it do its thing, and we'll come back to that when it's complete. Okay, so once you've finished extracting all your files out of your OSU1 archive and everything's where you want it to be, in our instance we extracted everything to our USB stick, which is the E drive on our particular machine. If we go into there now, as before, we have our system $system update folder and we have all our files in there. What we need to do is we do need to copy one extra file to our USB stick, and that is the boot animation. Now by default this isn't included in the OSU1 archive for some reason. You may therefore find that when you boot your machine you end up with a blank screen on startup. After a few minutes, of course, once it's fully booted up, it should be fine. It doesn't really matter. Over time it will fix itself, but if you'd rather not have a black screen on boot up for a little while, then as I would rather not, then if you check the description again, there's another link to the various boot animation files in there. There's a different boot animation for the 1X as opposed to the 1S and the digital editions, but no matter what, the various incarnations of it are down below for you to download. All you need to do is just download the relevant boot animation, and then all you need to do, so basically it's called bootanim.dat, so download whichever one you need. Somebody's previously asked me if I can use the 1X animation on an older Fat 1 or 1S or 1 digital. Yes, you can. It may get overwritten with a future update, but yes, you can. There's nothing stopping you doing it. Basically, all you do is you download it, and once you've downloaded it, we're going to right click, copy it, and we're going to copy it into our USB stick $system update folder. So right click and paste. There you go. And our file now, our bootanim.dat, is in our system update folder. Okay, that's it. We're done. So that's the preparation of the USB stick. All our various files are in there. This may change over time. This is another thing that cropped up on the other videos, whereby I think on the video it may have had 24 files in there. Eventually they branched it out and there was 30 odd, and they were saying, well, I've got more files than you, don't worry about it. As long as you've extracted everything from the archive, whether it's more files, fewer files, it doesn't matter. As long as you've got everything out of the archive, as I say, all I do is just extract this root $system update folder, and then everything in it comes out automatically anyway. All I do then is just paste that one file in there, and we're good to go. All you need to do now, if you haven't already, is take your cleaned hard disk drive, if you've had to clean it, put it in the Xbox, or if it's a brand spanking new drive, take it out of the packet, install it now if you haven't already. There's plenty of tutorials online of how to disassemble an Xbox. It's literally just a case of taking the top of the case apart, taking the caddy out, and basically swapping the cable over and screwing your new hard disk into it. It's a quick and easy process, no matter whether you've got an original FAT, a 1S, a 1 digital, or a 1X. They're all fairly straightforward to do, so I'm not going to cover that here. Again, I'll put some links in the description to various tutorials and things like iFixit guides and things, which are really useful for doing this sort of stuff. Anyway, once you have your hard drive installed inside your Xbox and you've got your USB stick ready to go, we'll join us on the next step when we'll actually go to getting our new hard drive installed into our Xbox and getting the software back on it and getting ourselves back up and running again. Oh, just a quick one as well before we do, just to show you. So if we go into the settings on this particular machine, go down to storage devices, you'll see there internal storage is 192.6 gigabytes free of 365 gig. This is a day one edition 500 gigabyte machine. So once we've finished the upgrade, we'll be able to see we have a lot more available space to us. But before we shut it down, what I recommend you do is do a full shutdown on the machine. And the way you do that, particularly if you have your machine in the instant startup mode, not in the power saving option, is to go into general, power mode and startup, and then down here there's an option for full shutdown. Hit that, completely shut down your Xbox console, shut down. That will turn everything off, it'll stop the hard disk spinning, fully shut the machine down. Sometimes what you tend to find is that while the machine shuts itself down, the hard disk and stuff still spin. That can cause data corruption and data loss or damage the disk. So obviously, if you want to keep this disk, just in case, for example, it fails, or you want to go back to it for whatever reason, then obviously we don't really want to damage it or the data on there. By doing a full shutdown, that completely avoids it. Likewise, that's quite a useful one to know just for generally turning your machine off if you switch it off at the mains on a night, because if you don't, when you flip it off at the switch, you will hard stop the disk, and that is quite often what kills them. So there's another quick tip for you. Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, so now we should have our hard disk drive installed inside our Xbox. It's generally an easy procedure, as I say. Follow those tutorials for stripping down in the description. and then come back here. So as you can see, I'll just insert a few photos here. Essentially on this original Xbox, it's the same on them all really. The caddies are slightly different, but the idea of the premise of changing them out is the same. Essentially it's a case of just removing the screws that secure the hard drive to the caddy, swap the SATA cable and the power harness across from the old drive onto the new, screw it back together, and then just reassemble the machine. And that's about as complicated as it gets really. So other than that, once it's all back together and you're ready to go, then there's just one more thing we need to do, and that is to take our USB stick, which is here. In our case, this is our 32 gig stick we uploaded OSU1 onto earlier on, so we downloaded it, remember, and extracted it onto here. So the dollar system update is in the root of this USB stick, and that is ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pop this into a spare USB slot on our Xbox One. Pretty much you can use any of them really. You don't have to use the front facing ones, you can use the rear ones if you like. On these original Xbox ones, often it's easiest to pop it into the spare slot on the left hand side of the machine as you're looking from the front. And now all we need to do is go over how we're going to reinstall our OS onto our Xbox. Remember that hard drive inside there now is completely blank, there's nothing on it. So we need a way to get everything back as it was. And the way we're going to do that is by using what I call the 3 beep technique. And this is one, I don't know, it seems to sort of escape a lot of people. So basically what we're going to do is on the original fat Xbox One, the One S and the One X, what we're going to do is we are going to press and hold the controller sync and eject buttons, and whilst keeping those two held, we're going to tap the power button. Okay, once we've tapped that power button, we're going to keep those two sync and eject buttons held. Now, of course, once we tap the power button, we're going to hear the initial power up tone. That's the first beep. We're then going to hear a second beep whilst keeping those two buttons held in. That would normally get you into the troubleshooter. Now, that's what a lot of people do. But what we're going to do is we're going to continue to hold those sync and eject buttons in until we hear the third beep. And then once we hear the third beep, we're going to release those buttons. And then after a few seconds, you should see the software installer come up on the screen, and we should hear a fourth power up tone, which basically means that it's found the USB stick and it's accepted the update on it, and then it'll go and apply the update. So as you can see here, what we'll do is we'll split the screen down so you can see what I'm doing on the buttons on the Xbox, and then you'll also be able to see what's happening with the screen output from the console. So if you've got a Xbox One S digital edition, of course those do exist, there's no eject button because obviously there's no disk drive. So on those particular machines, all you do is you press and hold the sync button. So press and hold the sync button, tap the power, keep the sync button held. So you tap the power, that's the first beep, keep the sync button held. Second beep, third beep, then release the sync button, and then after a few seconds you should hear the fourth beep when it accepts the update found on the USB. Okay, so that's the best, easiest, and most successful way you've got of doing this. You can put it into the troubleshoot and try doing an offline update, but quite often I find that gives issues, whereas this 3 beep technique seems to work quite well. So we will demonstrate that now. Remember, our USB stick is plugged in down here. So what we're going to do, we're going to press and hold that sync button. We're going to press and hold eject. We're going to tap power. That's the first power up tone. Keep it held. Second power up tone. Keep it held. Third beep. Okay, and then I let go. You'll see now it says preparing console. There's the fourth beep. And there we go, updating. So you'll see there across the bottom it says your console will restart during the update. Yes, it will. And that's it now. That's really just a case of letting it go. So we'll speed this process up to the end so you can see what it does. As you can see here, so essentially there's 3 stages. Step 1 is downloading, there's a preparing, and then there's an install. So downloading is essentially copying the files off the USB stick. Then it will sort of unextract them, unzip them, whatever it does in the background to get the update ready. It'll then reboot at the end of stage 2. So don't worry if it goes down and it looks like it powers itself off. It will come back on after a minute or so. and then it'll go to stage 3, and that's when it will finish updating. Now, sometimes what will happen on stage 3 is it will stop. Now, sometimes if you get, I think it's about 72% overall, it's about 33% on stage 3, something like that. If it stops and it goes to the troubleshooter, quite often what you need to do, and to be honest, if it stops any point during the process and it goes to the troubleshooter screen, what you need to do is go reconnect your controller to it. So you might have to resync it, okay? But then if you go to reset this Xbox, reset and clear everything, press X, the whole thing will reboot and it'll go back and it'll redo the entire update procedure from scratch. But what it has done, and what sometimes happens, is it gets some persistent settings in Flash which actually conflicts with what it's trying to do here. So because it can't clear them out and it needs essentially a blank slate because there's nothing on the hard disk anymore, what happens is it kind of gets its knickers in a twist. So what it has to do, it has to wipe everything out. So by doing that little procedure, what it actually does is it reverts everything to an out-of-box state, and then usually you tend to find that's enough to make the update go through. Occasionally you can end up with software corruption. You can end up with flash corruption, which is like a perpetual E101. That is a little bit unfortunate sometimes when that happens. The only way you can really tell is to just do the process by the letter, try a new hard drive, new USB stick, make sure your updates are downloaded as they should be. If you keep getting E101 over and over and over, it doesn't matter what you do, you've reset and cleared everything, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, if that E101 persists, it's usually a corrupt flash, a corrupt NAND in there, and there's not really much you can do about that because, again, the data is per machine. The other thing you can sometimes find, and usually this will happen early on in the process, this will happen usually fairly early doors, you'll get an E106. And an E106 is, generally speaking, there's a software mismatch. So essentially the software on the box is newer than the update you've got on your USB stick. Yeah. So in that instance, that's generally because your machine is enrolled on what they call the Xbox Insider program. So that's where you will get the latest software updates early. So if you're a member of the Xbox Insider program and your console is enrolled in that, what you're going to have to do, unfortunately, is wait until the next official Dash release, because then when Microsoft update the OSU1 tool, it will be a later version than the one that's installed on your machine, and at that point then you'll be able to go through this entire process and do what you need to do. So that can be another one that catches people out. Another one, if you get like an E102 really early on, so like when it starts to copy and it goes to E102, that generally means it's having some hard time partitioning or understanding the partitions that are already on the disk. So that's where sometimes if you've got data on the disk and you've not gone through that clean that we did via disk part on the PC, sometimes that's why, because it's got data on there, it's got a file system on there already, and it's having some hard time sort of working out what to do with it. So again, in that instance, if it's a disk you've already used, then I'd go back in there and just clear it out. The other one, of course, is if there's any bad sectors of anything on this drive, then again you could find there are some problems. So you'll see my machine has just gone down there, but it's coming back up. So like I said, this will reboot at various points, so don't ever panic if your machine goes down. There you go. So that's the end of step 2 of 3 verifying. So you'll see now we're going on to step 3 of 3. So remember when I said it would reboot itself at the end of stage 2? So that's one to be wary of. Another important thing just to mention here, it's been sat on 86% for a while. It does sort of stick at various points. It might look like it's not doing anything, it might look like it's just sitting there, but don't be impatient, don't panic about it, don't think, ooh, I've got to turn it off, something's gone wrong. Just leave it to do. It will get through it in the end. Okay, so as you can see there at the end, it sort of sticks around a little bit. It does take a while to finish. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to reconnect the controller. Okay, now it's taking me straight into the OS. Now, sometimes it will do that, and other times it'll take you back to like the first run initialization screen. So if it does this, this is often because it's got persistent settings in there. So what I tend to do at the end of all this is go down to settings, and then what I'll do is I'll go down to system console info, and then I'll do a reset, and I'll clear everything out from there. Now, before I do that, what I'll do is I'll show you the storage devices. And we can see there now that we have 1.6 terabytes free of 1.6 terabytes available to us. So we can see there now that everything is expanded up. So everything now we had before 360 something, was it? Gigabytes. We've now got 1.6 terabytes. So our 2 terabyte drive is there. And just to show that everything is fine as far as resetting it goes and everything else, if we reset console, we can reset and remove. You see what I mean there? So it says something went wrong. That's because there's still some persistent settings in the flash. So essentially, it uses the hard disk drive to store things, but persistent settings and things it'll hold in flash. Now, obviously, when the two are tallied up, then that's fine. But when we change one, and now that's completely fresh, but those settings are still in flash, it can conflict. It's not really happy. So what I always tend to do once I've finished is I'll go into here and I will reset and remove everything. So that is just to recap into the settings menu, system, console info, reset console, reset and remove everything. Okay. Now it may at this point want to connect to your Wi-Fi network again. It may not know that data. It may not know that information anymore because that system information may well be held on the hard disk drive, and of course that's not there. So you may have to reset your network up. This is something I always recommend you do. Now, if it doesn't do this for you, then what I would recommend, if it doesn't take you back into the dashboard so you can do this, as I say, sometimes it'll do this, what it's doing to me here, and other times it'll just go to the first run initialization. If it goes to the first run initialization, what I'd do is I would remove the USB stick and then power the machine down, and then I would press and hold the sync and eject and tap the power. Keep that pressed and held in. So okay, so when you tap the power button, you'll hear the first power up tone. Keep holding that sync and eject, and then when you hear the second power up tone, release. Okay, and then what that will do is that will take you to the troubleshooter menu, and from there you can do the reset this Xbox. From there you can reset this Xbox and then do a reset and clear everything. That is what I would do in that scenario. And then obviously it'll go away. It'll kick everything out, all the persistent settings in flash. It'll reinitialize the hard disk drive, so you basically both are starting from a clean slate, and then everything will marry. Then it'll go back to the first one initialization, and then you can go through and do what it is that you need to do. If it's done to you, I'm actually quite glad it's done to me what it's done here, because it's quite hard to show otherwise, because it doesn't always do it. So I'm just going to type in my password. Be back with you in a sec. Okay, so this is just going to go away and reconnect to my Wi-Fi network. Okay, it's happy with that. So then I can go back and try and reset again. And this time I'm going to reset and remove everything. It's going to reboot itself. It may stay black for a time, but it will come back up in a second. Controller has gone off. Like I say, it does sit around. You know, you don't think it's doing anything, but it is. So just be patient. Okay, there you go. So it's come back up preparing console. You've just got to give it a minute here. So as before, as you can see here, you know, controller is off. There's no lights on the controller at all. Again, at this point, don't be tempted to do anything. Just leave it to do its thing. Depending on the size and spec of hard disk, you know, if you're using an SSD, it might be slightly quicker. If you're using a 7200 RPM disk as opposed to a 5400 RPM disk, again, it might be slightly quicker. This is a 72, I can't remember if this is a 72 or 5400 RPM drive, I can't remember. Either way, you can use both. That's another question that often comes up. And as you'll see, this is effectively going through stage 3 of 3 again, in a way. But it doesn't take as long. So this is just now essentially fully resetting everything. This is fully resetting all, obviously the user data and everything on the machine is gone anyway because it's a different hard disk, but all the persistent user settings and things, console configuration that's held in flash is now being essentially erased and restored back to factory settings. So we'll have a fresh, clean, blank hard disk and a fresh, clean, blank set of settings in the flash, which is what we want to have because then everything will marry up nicely. So this doesn't take too long, in fairness. It does take a little while, but it doesn't take as long as it does to do the actual installation. So it just takes a couple of minutes here. Okay, there we go. So this is now back into the first run. So again, it's just a case of following it as you would out of the box. So press and hold the button. You can see now it's asking me to press the A button. And there we are. So this is back in first run. So essentially now it's just a case of going back through the first run as you would normally do, and everything should be fine. So again, it may find this time it's going to ask you to reconnect to your Wi-Fi unless you've got the Ethernet plugged in. Again, I'll reconnect to my Wi-Fi really quickly. And you may find when it finishes reconnecting, it finds a very small update to download. So we'll just see what this does. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. They're usually just like language files and locales and things like that it's after, but we'll see what it does. Sometimes it picks them up, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, there you go, 25 meg. Let's just allow it to do it. You can see my console is going to reboot. Okay, now at this point, don't worry. If the screen is blank and the machine has come up from the reboot, don't worry. What it's actually doing there is it's missing some files, which is it's missing some files from the hard disk drive, which does sometimes happen, and it will fix itself over time. So on the next dashboard update it does officially, you will find that it will probably replace those missing files. It just means that on startup it's going to be black for a little while. You can fix that yourselves, by the way, and I will show you how you can do that. But as you can see now, we're just going to carry on through the sign-in procedure. And everything would be absolutely fine. From this point forward, you'll just be able to sign yourself back into your Xbox Live account, and it'll go back to dashboard, and then obviously you can restore your game saves, put your game disc back in, reinstall them, all that sort of stuff, and everything will be good to go. Obviously, if that black screen on startup is going to annoy you, you can fix it, and I'm going to show you that now. What it does mean, though, is that you will have to remove the hard disk drive from your Xbox, plug it back into the PC for a minute so we can replace the missing file. As I say, some people it doesn't bother, but some people it does, and if it does you, here's what you do. Okay, so we're back in the main menu now. We have our account signed back in, and everything's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the settings menu. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to power mode and startup. I'm going to go to full shutdown. Shut down again. And then we're just going to wait for the machine to finish shutting down. Okay, and then we're going to start this back up just to make sure that the splash screens aren't waiting for us when it reboots. And no, it doesn't look like it, does it? So again, this is perfectly normal, and this is what I'm talking about. So what'll happen is on the next update, if you're not that bothered, the next update will come around and it will reinstall those splash screens for you, and they will return, and they'll be absolutely fine. There'll be nothing you have to do. It will just do it itself. But if you're like me and this annoys you because you're not entirely sure what the hell's going on, or you don't know if it's working, or what the hell, then this is quite a simple process. Sometimes those files are missing, sometimes it corrupts them, and it seemed to do this a while ago. As you can see now, it's back into dashboard. So we will just go and do that again. So now we've confirmed that our splash screens are indeed missing. What we're going to do is I'll sign back in. Okay, lovely. So I'm going to go back down to settings. I'm going to go back across to power mode and startup. Back down to full shutdown. Shut down now. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to pop the machine apart again, remove the hard disk drive, plug the hard drive into our, in my case, my laptop with a SATA to USB adapter, so we can get to the files, and then we can take a look what's missing, see what's happened. Is it a missing file? Is it a corrupt file? And then we can correct that, put it back in our machine, and hopefully everything be good to go. Okay, so we have our hard disk drive back out of the machine now, and we have it hooked back up to our laptop to take a look and see what's going on, see why our splash screen startup animations are missing. So what we need to do, if we go into this PC, we can see here on our X drive, this is the system update partition. This is where they live, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to go into here, and then we're going to check the A and B folders, and what we're looking for as we can see there, they're missing, is a file essentially called bootanim.dat. So there should be a file called bootanim.dat in there, and the same file should be in there. Now what happens is sometimes it's completely missing, as it is in our case, and in other occasions it's corrupted. So essentially, if you check the link in the description, you'll be able to download these files. Okay, and what we're going to do essentially is there's a different one for the X as opposed to what there is for the FAT S and digital. You can interchange the two if you like, but they may be overwritten with the next software update, but you can still do it if you like. So we're going to copy our bootanim.dat that we downloaded from the links in the description, and we're going to paste that file into our X drive system update A folder. So right click paste, and we're going to do the same again in B. Okay, that's that, done. Okay, now sometimes those files will be there, but one of them, so you can see the size here is 32.884 kilobytes, so that's about 32 meg. That's what they should be. What you might find occasionally is that one of these two copies is like something like stupid, like something like 60 something kilobytes or 782 kilobytes or something stupid, a lot smaller than 32,884. If that is the case, then you can copy the file over the affected, corrupt version, and again that should be enough to restore your splash screens. So what we can do now is we can close out of all of that. We can eject our storage device, lovely, and then we can reconnect this to our Xbox. We can reinstall it, and everything should be fine. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's get this back in the Xbox. We'll fire it back up for a final time just to make sure those splash screens are now present, and then we'll round everything up, and we should be good to go. Okay, so I've just really roughly reassembled this machine now just to show you what it does. So we've got the screen capture running. I'm just going to power this back up, and it'll stay black for a few seconds. So the fan has just kicked in. And if we wait for another second or so, we should start to see the splash screen come up. There it is. Happy days. So there you go. That's all you have to do to fix it. So if the file's missing, it's just a case of copying it into those A and B folders on the system update drive. If like I say, if the files are there, but one of them is significantly smaller in size than the other, they should both be around the 32 meg mark. And again, just copy over the affected one with the files in the description, and you should be good to go. So that's it. I know it would annoy me if it was left blank, so if it annoys you, that's what you do to fix it. It's not particularly complicated, but it's just an extra step. As I say, the next time it does an official update, it will reinstall the splash screens anyway, so if you can afford to wait a few weeks because you can't be bothered to strip it down, don't panic. They'll come back of their own accord eventually. As you can see now, we're back into the dashboard. Everything is good to go. So we will just sign ourselves back in. It's going to take a second. Let's go back into the settings and we'll just show you again. Storage devices. There you go, 1.6 terabytes of free space. So we've gone from 500 gigabytes to a 2 terabyte hard disk drive, and that's it. So it is a lot simpler than it ever used to be. No more scripts, no more Linux, no more messing about. Just a case of installing your disk, preparing OS E1, and then getting the thing installed, and that's it really. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you found this useful and you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that big thumbs up button below the video to feed the algorithm. It's incredibly useful for smaller channels like mine, and basically the more people that like it, that view it, then the more people that it gets thrown out to as a recommendation. Hopefully more people watch it, the channel grows, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. If you could do that for me, that would be most appreciated. If this sort of video is your thing and messing around with games consoles, whether it be PS4s, Xbox Ones and all that sort of stuff is, then feel free to take a look at my other videos. There's over 100 videos on the channel now, all with regards to fixing Xboxes, a lot of component level motherboard repair and things like that. So again, if that's your bag, then feel free to check them out. And of course, remember to hit that subscribe button and ding the bell to be notified of any future uploads as and when they come. The PS5 that I've been meaning to get done for a donkey's load of time now is at the side of the table, and that is definitely getting some stick at the minute. So those videos should be coming up for you shortly as I can get them edited together. So stay tuned for those. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. You've been brilliant as always. If you are in the UK or EU and in need of a repair or an upgrade of your own for your own Xbox, then feel free to hit me up. My email address is in the description below. It's ytandrewpaul@outlook.com. Get in touch and we can get you a quote for a system repair for anybody based in the UK or EU. If you're slightly further afield and you're in the US, unfortunately I can't offer board repair services for you, but I can ship you machine components, and I can send those worldwide. So again, if you need a component, to repair your own system, then feel free to again drop me an email to that email address and I'll see what I can do to help you. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. You've been brilliant as always. Thank you for sticking by me. I know it's been a while since the last upload, but that's what family life does for you these days when you're working a full-time job in between. So so thank you very much for sticking by me. I've been Andy Paul, you've been brilliant as always, and I thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good day, and hope life treats you well. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate, and of course subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there, and there's lots more to come.